subsequently found to be slanderous in a court of law. With those comments, Councillor White, would you open our hui with the karakia, please?
Tēnā koe te tiumana, me ngā memo te kaurihira, me ngā kai tautoko. Me ngā memo te hāpori, e me te pau whakaata I tēnei rā, kei te mega te kia futa, karakia putu tātou. E te atua nui tōnu, o mātou e nei nui atu nei ki a koe. Te tau mai te māramatanga ki a mātou whakarite mo tēnei rā. Ka hino hoki mātou e eke ai te oranga tōnu ki ngā hūtanga katoa, a ngā tangata ki tō mātou rohe whānui tōnu. Amen. Almighty God, we ask that you give us wisdom in the decisions we make here today and give us guidance in working with our regional communities to promote their social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor White. So we move to apologies. So we have no apologies, but we need to note that Councillor Shirley, who is overseas, will be attending via iPhone.
Through you, he's trying to get on Zoom at the moment, but if that doesn't work, he'll be coming in on speakerphone.
Okay, so he'll have to manage the technology in the absence of very good people here at the council who do it for us. And we have Councillor Thompson is on Zoom as well. Can I have a move of those notes be made? Councillor Thurston, Councillor Bondalos, and all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. There is no public forum. Items not on the agenda. There are no new items to be added to the agenda. There's no change to the order of business. Declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor,
I have to read this out.
I was going to try and okay, we'll do them singularly. Thanks, Councillor Crosby.
As a director of Quayside Holdings and Quayside Securities, I declare a conflict of interest. Item 9.4 on the agenda, and in particular in relation to the consideration of the potential managed sell down of the Port of Tauranga shareholding. For the avoidance of doubt, as this item is a decision, I will not be expressing any view or participating in the debate and will abstain from voting. Specifically on current recommendations 6B1 on agenda item 9.4, which pertains to the adoption of the financial strategy contained in the long-term plan, including Council's decision on Quayside's shareholding of the Port of Tauranga. As this is a public meeting, I will be available to answer questions as the Director of Quayside if required.
Thank you, Councillor Crosby. Councillor White.
Yes, bear with me, Mr. Chair. I shall do the same conflict of interest declaration as Councillor Crosby has done. As a Director of Quayside Holdings and Quayside Securities, I declare a conflict of interest on item 9.4 on the agenda, and in particular in relation to the consideration of a potential managed sell down of the Port of Tauranga Limited shareholding. For the avoidance of doubt, as this item is a decision, I will not be expressing any view by participating in the debate and will abstain from voting, specifically on current recommendation 6B on agenda item 9.4, which pertains to the adoption of the financial strategy contained within the long-term plan, including the Council's decision on Quayside shareholding in Port of Tauranga Limited. As this is a public meeting, I will be available to answer any questions as the Director of Quayside if required. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor White. And from me, I note I'm attending this meeting as an elected member of the Bay Plenty Regional Council. As you know, I'm also a Director of the Port of Tauranga and as the Council's representative on that board. I advise you do not consider to be a conflict of interest for this meeting. I will consider matters that are being discussed with an open mind, bearing in my role as a councillor. I have received independent legal advice concerning this matter and further advise this meeting that I've declared to the Port of Tauranga my role with the council, and I do not intend to vote or participate in any discussions that the Port or Port of Tauranga board may wish to have on this matter. I have no financial interest in Port of Tauranga or Quayside Holdings perpetual preference shares. Can we note those conflicts of interest? Thank you, Claudia. Item 7, public excluded business to be transferred into the open. There is none. Yeah. Can we go through to the minutes, Regional Council minutes of the 9th of May, 24. Moved Councillor White, seconded Councillor Winters. All those, please say aye. Aye. Against, carry. Any matters arising from those minutes?
Just
Councillor White, Councillor
Winters. All right. Page 15, the public notice for the representation review being 23rd of May. Have we had any feedback in terms of our for hearings coming up so far?
Through you, thank you, councillor. We've had 6 submissions to date. Most of those have related to the existence of Māori wards or not, which is not a matter for consideration through this representation review process. It's worth noting that we'll be doing a advertising run this weekend, and submissions close, I think it's 10th of July. So we'll do an advertising run this weekend as a kind of final reminder before submissions close. Yeah. We've currently got 3 hearing days scheduled for that. We might cut that back because I'm not sure we'll need.
Yeah, I'm just
3 full
wondering,
days.
Mr. Chairman, I doubt whether we'll need 3 hearing days.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Councillor Winters. Regional Council minutes of the 17th of May. Moved Councillor Nees, seconded Councillor Winters. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Any matters arising from those minutes? Not. Regional Council minutes, LTP deliberations of the 18th of May. I'll move. Seconded. Councillor Eadie. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Regional Council minutes of extraordinary meeting of the 11th of June. I'll move. Seconded Councillor Thurston. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Reports. Agenda item number 9, adoption of the revenue and financing policy. Just as a preamble, councillors, could I say that 98% of this material you have previously discussed, made decisions on. The important factor today is in terms of any additions, alterations to the decisions that you made at your last meeting. And I think staff are going to highlight those changes. Byron.
Atamari, Chair and Councillors. This report is essentially providing councillors the latest version, which is the outputs of your workshops you've had through the LTP process, the feedback you would have considered as part of your deliberations falling out of the consultation process held between March and April as part of the LTP process. So in front of you, you have the direction you've given at your deliberations meeting in May for the revenue and financing policy and funding needs analysis that is attached to this report for your consideration and adoption today.
Thank you. Councillors. Recommendations are on page 43. Councillor Crosby, happy to move. Thank you. Councillor Thurston, second. Yes. Councillor Winters, discussion.
Just on item 4, Mr. Chairman, page 44. I note in the meeting we're going to give there's a delegation to Ruben to be the acting CEO. So does 4 apply to the acting CEO as well? Thank you.
Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor McMillan.
It's not really for now, but with the UAGC, I think in hindsight, I would have liked to have understood that a bit better. Not that's on me, but I feel like it kind of swept through at the 30% without me fully comprehending what that really meant. So I'm just putting it out there that you know, if I'm here next time round, I'd like to unpack that a bit deeper, because I feel like through my own ignorance as a first termer, it just came and passed. And yeah, just a comment.
Thank you, and I'm sure staff will help you outside of the confines of this meeting to work through those issues. Councillor Nees.
Thank you. I just want some assurity. I know that we've got a bit of an issue around funding from NZTA and our long-term plan. So I just want to make sure that the current revenue and financing policy provides enough flexibility to enable us to fund that shortfall out of reserves if we need to.
Byron.
So Councillor Nees, yes, we have considered that and can confirm that is within the band stipulated by the policy.
Thank you. Councillors, no further discussion. The item on resolutions on page 43 have been moved and seconded. All those in please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, Kamara, and that takes us through to 9.2, which is adoption of the updated significance and engagement policy.
So councillors, this report essentially outlines an amendment to the policy in response to your decision made at deliberations regarding the enablement of the managed sell-down of the port shares. So just on section 2, page 87 of your agenda, sets out the text in terms of the strategic asset tweak that we make in response to that decision under the policy for your consideration and adoption for today.
Councillor Nees.
Thank you. With respect to that new text, on page 87 in the report and page 95 of the agenda for the policy, I think there needs to be further wording in that note to clarify that there is further information required and a number of subsequent council considerations and decisions required before any share sales could or would be made by Quayside. This is something that we have talked about, making sure that it's spelled out, and what I'd like to see is a bit more like the words in paragraph 2 of section 1.2.1 on page 109 in the LTP sign-off agenda paper. I just don't think the wording of the new text of the significant and engagement policy makes that really clear that there is further information and there are further decision steps required before any sell down can or would be made.
Mara.
So the chair, yeah, so we can, as part of the editorial changes that we can make to the content of the document, make those changes as advised.
I can see to my notes if you'd like.
Chief Executive, I think we've always been quite clear that there's a stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3.
Absolutely, and for complete clarity, very happy to make those changes.
Anything else, councillors? Councillor Von Duddleson, Councillor Scott, second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Long-term plan strategic framework, 9.3.
So this report essentially provides the outputs of your discussions and deliberations at your May meeting. The executive summary on the first page of the report in essence summarizes the two pieces of content that you directed to have changed in the strategic framework, which is essentially the community outcome for connected communities being renamed to connected and enabled communities, and a new goal 11 to be included in the framework. That's now presented in the revised strategic framework for your consideration.
Thank you. Pretty straightforward, councillors. Thank you, Councillor McMillan. Councillor Eaty, second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Nine point four, long-term plan adoption. Welcome, Mr. Treese.
Thank you.
Councillors, I will take the core report for the LTP adoption as read and would like to draw your attention to the hard copies that have been circulated around for each of you to consider, which is two addendums. Addendums 1 and 2. Addendum 1 being a summary of late changes made to the LTP following your deliberations meeting in May. Those two items, two changes that comprise those addendums essentially cover off additional disclosures around climate change and some proposed changes to the Waka Kotahi funding as it relates to the continuous program, which was advised by Waka Kotahi on the 6th of June by a letter to council. And the addendum sets out the details of those changes and the implications for the long-term plan. In relation to the Waka Kotahi funding, the Office of the Auditor General considered those those changes, from the letter from Waka Kotahi, along with the climate change matter, and directed Audit New Zealand to work with councils across the sector to incorporate those changes into the long-term plan. So far as it relates to Waka Kotahi funding, the letter indicated that an amount that signaled that the funding that was covered in the long-term plan was actually higher than what the agency had advised. So as a result of that, the Office of the Auditor General wanted us to make the revision to that adjustment. So, which meant we had to reduce the amount of subsidy funding that was programmed in the long-term plan. That resulted in a material variance, which the Office of the Auditor General requested we make changes to. As a result of that, we've made those changes. Now, in order to accommodate that change in the budget, we've had to draw down on reserves because of the reduced subsidy that was signaled through the Waka Kotahi letter. That in essence entails a drawdown of $5 million from reserves for over the first 3 years of the long-term plan. That would then reduce the shortfall to an immaterial variance, which we've agreed with audit, and is the outputs of the details that you see in front of you today. In terms of rating impact, it has because we're drawing $5 million worth of reserves over the first 3 years of the LTP, there are no rating impacts to any of the rating categories. So the rating impacts that were signaled to you at the deliberations meeting remain unchanged. And in the report that was circulated as part of the agenda. Also to note, that's covered in the addendum. Towards the end of the addendum, we provide a table of the detailed implications of these changes. None of the prudential benchmarks have been impacted in terms of meeting their limits. So in particular, Council will recall when we had discussions around the financial strategy and the balanced benchmark parameter, that remains unchanged. So in essence, Council has a balanced budget for all of the 10 years, having taken into account the adjustments that have been documented in the addendum and sitting in front of you.
Thank you, Kumaran, for that explanation. As councillors know, this has been an evolving issue over the last week. I hope that explanation satisfies the concerns. We've ended up at the right place. So before I come to Councillor Scott, Leon, you're happy with this proposal?
Yeah,
Presentation?
yeah, Mr. Chair, we worked very closely with management on both these issues. Both of them came in late in the piece, so that wasn't helpful, not to us and definitely not to management and staff, and that it puts us all under a lot of pressure. But we're comfortable with where you ended up, that I can still issue a clean audit opinion.
Thank you, Leon. Councillor Scott, then Councillor Nees.
Look, thank you. I understand the just the changing of the revenue numbers. My question is, does this preclude us making any changes to our level of service?
So the change only has been made insofar as it relates to funding. There's been no implications for levels of service. The National Land Transport Plan will be announced in September. Council will have the opportunity during the financial year of year one of the LTP to consider responding through an in-year budget adjustment to that. Council also has the opportunity to accommodate any confirmations signaled through that National Land Transport Plan in September through subsequent annual plans for years 2 and 3 of the LTP. And if that has any service level impacts you want to consider that point in time, there'll be an opportunity for you to consider that.
Thank you, Councillor Nees.
Thank you. First, question for our auditor. We are not, absolutely certain, not the only council that's facing this issue. Not only regional councils for public transport, but also local PLAs. So can you tell me how, the way we're treating it, is everybody else treating it the same way across the country?
No, ma'am. Not everyone is treating it the same way. I know of 1 or 2 who may end up with a qualified audit opinion because they are not making the changes that's required to bring it within a material so that there is no material difference. And there were a few options that the Auditor General indicated that they would accept, that councils could make. This, I think, is the best option. And yeah, so across the board, yes, there are councils doing very much the same as you, but there are some that will not make any change.
Okay, thank you. My other question is for staff. Reserve funding, I presume, if there is funding within a targeted rates, public transport targeted rates reserve, that would be used first, before we draw down on the regional fund, because my perception is that might have an impact on rates, on targeted rates. If we were thinking of using the targeted rates reserve, if there was a balance in it to offset the need to target rate this year or this coming year, then it potentially could have an issue with rates. And I just don't know what our policy is about priority of use of reserves.
At this stage, the adjustments made is drawing on the regional fund, and that's primarily based on the uncertainties of what the actual final confirmation would be from the National Land Transport Plan process. Councillors will then have the opportunity to look at the rating implications and refine the reserve drawdowns through the subsequent annual plan processes and any consequential rating impacts that might entail through that process.
Chief Executive?
Just can I add to that? We have indicative funding from NZTA, which is, while it's 50% more than we've had in the last 3 years at 112 million, it is less than what we bid for in terms of meeting the growing public transport service needs of this region. It is expected by staff that you will have consideration of other changes you might want to make to public transport in year 1 of the long-term plan, which may be a significant consultation issue for your next annual plan. In particular, you are doing a fare review this year, and the other area that you may need to look is potential service reductions, given the reduced NZTA public transport services funding that has been indicatively provided to this council. As Kamaran has said, that will be finalised in September, but it's highly likely that your next annual plan will have a significant consultation questions for your communities in terms of public transport.
Thank you, Fiona. Councillor Winters?
Oh, just on page 109, budget announcement before the deluge. Have we got an update on that, Fiona, in terms of the announcement, pending announcement? I know we're not including it in our LTP, but you may have some other news, I don't know.
Again, through you, Chair, we have no further information to provide. We're still waiting in terms of confirmation, in terms of how that funding will be distributed to councils. And as you have noted, the long-term plan has been built without that funding coming in.
Thank you. Councillor McMillan?
Just on page 115 with the Rotorua Te Arawa Lakes Asset Management Plan, it indicates here in these pie charts that that the Ohau wall must be either average good or very good asset condition. I sort of question that based on the knowledge we have, that if you were to do nothing, then it would be very rapidly in decline to quite poor or very poor conditions. So how do we evaluate that the Ohau wall is in either average good or very good?
So through you, Chairs, you recall at your deliberations, you actually have funding in to investigate improvements to the Ohau wall. And as you indicated in your deliberations, while that is in year 2 of the long-term plan, it may be brought forward to year 1. There is a engineering advisory group now set up in terms of looking at the best options for that wall. You have funding in your long-term plan to repair it. The issue for this council is it may need quite a comprehensive infrastructure cost, and that will not be known yet until during the year.
So is it appropriate to have it in this document indicated that it's, you know, at worst average condition, or should it in fact be in poor condition?
So if I can make a comment on that, given the expected life cycle of that wall, which was 50 years, I think regarding the asset management of that, it's probably a fair assumption to say that it's average. Whereas if there hadn't been any degrading, it would have probably been good relative to the 50-year cycle. So I think it's probably a fair, from a governance point of view. And we've already flagged the issues that will come to the table,
Okay.
come to the council in future.
Happy with that, thank you.
Councillor Nice.
Just one further question about the asset management plans. The Parks Asset Management Plan, I just wonder whether I know it's a very recent decision, but we have accepted some land for the purpose of another regional park, and we are doing investigations for a potential park in the Rotorua area, and we did have a consultation session on it. So I just wonder whether we need a tweak or two, a sentence or something like that added into the section on the Parks Asset Management Plan.
But through you, Chair, we can amend that based on your deliberations recommendation in regards to that you are and you have agreed to put capital towards a future park. So we can put in a couple of sentences in that regard.
Anything else, councillors? Or with the accommodation, and we apologise, but you've had two late papers delivered to you in hard copies, so material on page 106 and 107 just needs to be changed in regard to item 6, which is receiving the table documents. Right, Kamara?
There's also, yes, there's a revised recommendation as on the screen to accommodate council's consideration, receiving the addendums and considering it and adopting that as part of the long-term plan.
That's clear. Right, councillors, moved councillor Winters, seconded councillor McMillan. No further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Fees and charges.
Councillors, I'll take this report as read and draw your attention to the introduction on page 155, which in essence summarizes the changes made to the fees and charges policy, and that's in accordance with the direction you've provided us at your deliberations meeting in May.
Thank you, Kamara. Councillor Nice.
Thank you. Just a question. We were accepting some changes to the navigation safety fees. We've also got a process underway reviewing the navigation safety bylaws, and the deliberations have yet to be held. So should the panel make recommendations for additional changes to the navigation safety fees, what would be the process by which they would be accepted? Would that be an amendment in during the year, or would they have to wait till the following year to be picked up in the annual plan?
It's likely to be picked up in the next annual plan.
Anything else, councillors? Happy to move councillor Crosby, councillor Von Duddleston. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Could we back up the walker a bit? Sorry, Leon, I forgot to give you the opportunity, but you did say an unmodified audit opinion. But could I just thank you and your team for the timely manner in which you've been able to deliver this audit opinion. It's appreciated. I know there were some issues in terms of whether or not we're going to meet the timeline, but as you know, our expectation is high, and I think you've delivered. So thank you, you and your team. And do you want to make any comment in terms of the process? Because I sort of ripped through that last agenda item without giving you the formal opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the comments. Really appreciate, as part of this process, I was in the bush looking for lions, tigers, not tigers, they are non-African leopards and stuff. So I had a lovely time while Warren was ably running the show with my team. So I'm sure he appreciates your comments even more than me. But also I've said this before, I really enjoy working with your management and staff, a very pragmatic approach. We quite often differ in opinion, but it doesn't cause any issues because we work through what is the right answer. And we both, I think, have the right attitude. And so I appreciate working with Kumaran and the team as well.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments, I appreciate it. Thanks very much. Thanks, Warren. 9.6, so we're up to Kumaran, rates of admission policies.
So councillor, this report again, take as read and draw your attention to section 2, page 187 of your agenda, which in essence sets out what has been implemented in the 2 policies attached following your direction signal at your deliberations meeting in May. So attachment 1 being the all land remission policy and attachment 2 being the Maori freehold land policy, and in particular with the Maori freehold land policy, the key direction changes you've highlighted has been highlighted in that attachment to confirm that direction you've signaled has been incorporated into the policies.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Eadie. Thanks, Councillor McMillan. No further discussion? If not, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Setting of rates. 9.7, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Adoption of development contributions or financial contributions policy.
Councillors, yeah, this particular policy had only 1 submission, which you considered as part of your deliberations. There were no substantive changes made to the policy. And that is what you have in front of you to adopt today.
Thank you. Move Councillor Crosby, Councillor Von Duddleston second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. 9.8, setting of rates. Councillor Nees, sorry.
Sorry, a question I should have asked earlier is, we had an extensive deliberations process and we have made decisions as a basis of that, which have all been embedded in the long-term plan. I think we were given assurances that we'd get to see the responses that before they go out to public. Just asking when we're going to receive those proposed responses.
Councillors, that's the next step following this meeting to look at providing responses to all submitters that have made the effort to submit to the LTP. And once we've compiled that, we're aiming to get that out by the end of July, and so we will aim to share that with you prior to that.
So Winters?
Yeah, in the executive summary on 232, third bullet point, including 21-22 year. I don't understand, why is it there in the executive summary? Third bullet point, the appointment of Kawerau, Apotiki, Rotorua, Western Bay, Taupo, Whakatane to collect rates assessed by the Bay of Henry, including 2021-22. What, in accordance with section 53? Why is that there?
Through the chair, most of the years which those councils are collecting historical rates, previous years that's unpaid. From 22-23, we were collecting our own rates.
Yeah.
So that is just highlighting that those councils are still collecting some rates from those prior financial years and require some resolutions to enable that.
Right.
So Mark, that means that this item will appear annually until, what, 7 years when they're written off, doesn't it?
Until they're written off or paid.
Okay,
understand that, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
prepared to move, Mr. Winters?
Yep.
Move, Mr. Winters, seconded, Mr. Crosby. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. That takes us
Oh,
to,
can I go back, Mr. Chairman? Sorry, it takes a while to scroll through some of these papers. Just in resolution 13, setting the targeted rates for the Rotary Lakes program. We're collecting $5 million this year for the Rotary Lakes program. And over time, that 50% contribution for the next 3 years is going to drop to zero for those for those urban, for Rotary Lakes Council properties. So what's the cumulative effect of that going forward, so that I can tell residents of Rotorua that that money is being transferred to the general rate being paid by all of Bay of Plenty residents?
I can provide that information. It'll just take me a little bit of time to pull together. I probably can't table at the speaking, but I'm happy to distribute it by email afterwards.
Through you, Chair, the figure that we have been using is around $28.5 million, but Mark will actually confirm that by email to you.
That's what I heard, but I just need it confirmed, Mr. Chairman, that I know, so that when I'm talking to people, I've got that in my back pocket to say, this is the effect of that change in 50% from targeted to general rates. Thank you. Yeah.
thank you. So we'll deal with that. Right, thank you, councillors. We go through the chair's report. So that's page 248 of your agenda. I'll move the adoption of that. So we can move it.
I moved it.
You moved it, we have a seconder. Councillor Thurston. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Chair's report 248. I'll move the receiving of that chair's report. Seconded, councillor White. Any questions in terms of that chair's report? If not, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Adoption of 2434 Regional Land Transport Plan. Oliver.
Tēnā koutou, councillors, through you, Chair. I will take the report as read, but I'd like to invite Councillor Thurston, as Chair of the Regional Transport Committee, to say a couple of words about the draft plan in front of you.
Thank you, Oliver, and thank you, colleagues. It's all stated in the documents and before you, but this was an 18-month robust program leading to the adoption today. As we know, depending on the decision today, which is pretty predictable, these documents have to land with the NZTA in Wellington by the 1st of August. It's worthy to acknowledge that this was done under some difficulty. It was done interregnum with a change of government, which created something of a challenge for our staff in particular. As we know, we didn't have a GPS until halfway through the process, but that's politics and we just had to work through it. I think it's fair to say at the end of the day, it landed with a massive focus on the Western Bay of Plenty, which caused a bit of grief with some of our other TLAs in terms of what they perceived to be equity. But at the end of the day, all those participating, and I'd like to thank all politicians who I invited to join the table, which I think was quite unique, but they didn't vote, of course. But I'd like to acknowledge today the mayors, the chairman, and the voting members, including our colleague, the Honourable Ken Shirley, former Commissioner Selwood and David Spears from NZTA, and the non-voting members who make a magnificent contribution to the Regional Transport Committee. And we have a full book there of the Automobile Association, Sustainability, the Port of Tauranga, Kiwi Rail, Heavy Freight, and the New Zealand Police. But in particular, I'd like to extend huge thanks to the Regional Advisory Group. And these came from right across the region, from the various TLAs. And I think the reason I think it's appropriate that I heap praise and thanks on them for their integrity, was because of where it landed at the end of the day, with a huge focus on the needs of the Western Bay of Plenty. So it came at some personal cost to their particular regions, but I'd like to formally move it, Chairman. There's 3 recommendations there on page 253, but I'd also like to add a 4th one, that we congratulate heartily today our staff in particular, and staff from across the region, past and present, for their contribution into this outstanding piece of work that has to be in Wellington by the 1st of August. As Councillor Winters would say, end of message.
Thank you, Councillor Thurston. I think that's appropriate, and can also acknowledge you as Chair of the Regional Transport Committee and getting to this place. I know it's never easy. It's trying to herd cats probably to a large degree, but thanks for your input as well. Councillor Scott, second. Councillor Neves.
Thank you. I would have seconded, but Ron's a bit faster than me. I just want to congratulate the chairman of the RTC and all staff on producing a very readable document. I didn't have the time to put into it that I would have liked, given the number of other pieces of paper that we had to go through. But it did seem to be presenting a very compelling business case to me. So just congratulations, and I just want to acknowledge how difficult it has been, but you've landed something that's really excellent, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neves. Councillor Winters, do you have something?
Oh, just, since this bit has been formatted, the Crown has announced a pothole fixing fund for all of New Zealand. So is that pothole fixing fund included in this RLTP?
Through you, Chair. Yes, so all funding sources through the National Land Transport Fund are in here. Ultimately, the spending of that fund will be by the Road Controlling Authority, either NZTA or the TLAs. Success and spend in that will ultimately be reported through to the RTC to monitor at a regional level. Okay.
Councillor McMillan.
Look, I don't want to sound negative, but under objective 2, it says the environmental effects, including emissions arising from the use of transport system, are minimised. Headline target goal: reduce carbon emissions from road transport by 41% between 2019 and 2025 on a path to net carbon zero by 2050 under the MOT Transport Outcome Environmental Sustainability. Is that realistic?
I think it's important, and certainly seems to be important to the committee, that we were able to track our progress against some aspirational and difficult targets. So it will be interesting to see through the life of the plan, the progress that we make as a region towards that.
Thanks, Oliver. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Councillor Thurston and Oliver, I should have rung it myself, but too busy. But Councillor Crosby and I had the opportunity of travelling State Highway 2 from Portakey through to Gisborne the last weekend. I must say, congratulations to NZTA and both authorities, both here in Tairāwhiti. I mean, the standard of the pavement of that road was really, really good compared to what it has been in the past. So credit where credit's due. You might just want to pass that on to, sorry?
It's flooded at Te Kareka today.
Oh, it'll be flooded at Te Kareka, but no, it's a big improvement from what it has been. Okay, councillor's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Kōwai Mato project, the Catalyst Group, you've been briefed on this before, councillors. This is formalisation of a contract that MFE asked us to uplift until the relevant governance executive group can be put in place by Tara Moana. Councillor McDonald, you've been part of the preliminary work going into this. Happy to move. Councillor McMillan, any discussions? Councillor Neves?
It's just a question, Mr. Chair. There's a mention of 195,000 for for the framework agreement with Catalyst. Is that being funded by the fund that was granted from MFE, or is that being funded by the regional council?
Through you, Chair, it's by NFE. Oh, sorry, Margaret, do you want to comment?
Yeah, kia ora, through the chair. Yes, that is part of the MFE funding.
Margaret, I just had one question in terms of the narrative there. The grant was 1.9, I think, from memory, but the contract here is 1.6. Or how you propose to use the balance?
So the balance is that 195, and then there'll be sort of the rats and mites stuff, if I can call it that, that will soak up the rest of it. We have directly done some health and safety sort of training, which was part of that funding as well. So yeah, it's sort of any of the training that they might need from now till the end of the project, which is only another year to run.
Okay, thank you for that. Happy to move, Councillor McDonald. Move, Councillor McDonald. Second, Councillor White.
It's me, but it's all good.
Sorry.
It was Councillor McMillan.
Okay, sorry. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. 912. Extension of the operator contracts. Thank you. Extension of the operator contract for Northern Corridor Waihi, Route 85.
Yeah, happy to take it as read, obviously to speak to it. This is to allow the contracts to continue. Oh, sorry. So happy to move. This is to allow these contracts to have an extension as we've gone through the change of government. It's important that we actually get the new contracts right. It's just giving time, and NZTA have agreed to the extension, so it just seems to make really good sense to me. But Ollie might want to expand on that.
Through you, Chair. Councillor Van Dalzen's covered the primary reason. In terms of 24-month extensions that we're seeking, there are justified reasons for each of those. So in addition to running a robust, fair and transparent procurement process, in the case of the Northern unit, it allows us to bring it in sync with the Tauranga urban contracts. In terms of Waihi, for those that have been involved in the Regional Land Transport Plan, you'll be aware that we are seeking funding to extend that service to Pairoa in conjunction with Waikato Regional Council. So that extension would allow us to realise that should we receive funding for it. And with Rotorua, given the scale of that contract, we would like to understand the opportunities under the Sustainable Public Transport Framework. So what we can deliver through that contract. There's also complicated issues around potential vehicle replacement and decarbonisation, which need to be understood if we are to be able to get best value for money out of a new contract. So those are the reasons for those extensions.
Thank you, Oliver. Councillor Nees, then Thurston.
Thank you. Just a question. On page 287, in the variation request for the Northern Service, it notes that an agreement was signed and dated on the 7th of March 2024 to extend the contract to 1 February 2026. So I'm a little bit confused whether that resolution that we've got in front of us now will further extend that contract to 30th of June 2026 with the others, or whether it will still stay at 1 February 2026, as noted on page 287.
So my understanding through you, Chair, is it formalises that extension to 2026. I would need to take that away and just check that that's not a typographical error.
Okay, so you'll confirm whether or not it's going to be till 30th of June 2026 for that particular contract, or February 26. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Happy to second, and also the note of Councillor Nees was here. She'd brought us to page 278. we know the most important thing to anyone is the spelling of their name, and I grieve for the people of Murupara and Ruatahuna on this occasion. So, for some reason, this organisation can never get their spelling right. All our documents incorrectly spell Murupara and Ruatahuna. So can we sort of
Full finger.
full finger? He said that, not me. Thank you.
Maybe it was Chat GPT or whatever they call it.
Doesn't bode well if we ever want to get Murupara into our tent, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. 9.13, Fiona.
Yes, this is seeking for you to approve delegation to Reuben Fraser while on leave from tomorrow.
Moved councillor Gondolson, seconded councillor Nees. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Sorry?
Could I have a question?
Yeah, fine.
Just, are there other GMs that are going to be away at the same time that you are? Just, I think we had some, because we're moving into July and people quite often take leave in July. Just wanted to check we've got adequate coverage of the organisation with GMs.
Yes, there's only one GM who's taking a week's leave in July, so all of the GMs are here.
Got them on speed dial, Jane.
You don't care.
Right, we dealt with that, haven't we?